This radical judge just officially sentenced Diddy to 50 months in jail for Mann Act violations. 50 months, 4 years and 2 months. And his reasoning why is BS. We should all be pissed off and angry at what we just witnessed in his courtroom today. And if you weren't there, or if you was at work and didn't have time to read up on what happened or how Diddy rights were violated, lucky for you, I sat through everything. I watched every update since about 9 a.m. this morning. This is the sentencing table the judge is supposed to use to figure out what's going to be the range of sentence. Diddy falls in Zone B and Zone C due to his conviction of the Mann Act, which is, he transported people to engage in prostitution. Now, because Diddy, this is his first conviction, is supposed to fall in the 4 to 10 months or maximum 8 to 14 months. It's unprecedented for somebody to get anywhere near 5 years or 4 years in jail for a Mann Act violation. But this is where you begin to see the devil at work here, where you begin to see this judge is a radical judge. He has it out for Diddy. It's unprecedented. Because the judge looked Diddy in his eyes, looked his attorneys in his eyes in court, and he said, listen, I know he was acquitted of all the other stuff that will require a harsher sentence, but I'm still going to consider those other stuff as well when I sentence him. So I'm not just sentencing him for stuff the jury decided, but yeah, I did my homework. I have the legal backing and a legal basis to sentence him for stuff that I heard in court that he was acquitted of. The state attorneys kept asking the judge to consider the beatings the women went through, how they was forced to do this, how they were coerced to do this, how this ruined their life. Diddy attorneys objected and said, hold on. Diddy was found not guilty. He was acquitted of trafficking these women. He was acquitted of engaging in anything that required force or coercion. The literal charge was trafficking by force or coercion. Diddy was found not guilty. Why do y'all keep saying these women were forced or coerced to do these things by Diddy? He was acquitted of this. He was found guilty of transporting people to engage in prostitution. The jury ruled that what those women did was consensual. So all the other stuff that he was acquitted for, that should have no play in what sentence he gets. The judge said, listen, you are wrong, Diddy attorneys. The judge says, now, as to the objections, the defense says acquitted conduct cannot be considered. There is no guidance from any court on this. We don't know what the jury was thinking. That means, hey, the jury acquitted him of trafficking, but they could have still thought that he coerced or forced these women to travel for prostitution. We don't know what they were thinking. But I still have to use my eyes and what I seen in his courtroom and what I heard in his courtroom. Even if the jury acquitted him of certain things, I still heard it so I could use it in my sentencing guidelines and I could consider it when I sentence him. The judge will state that it's overlapping conduct, so the force, coercion, or abuse that Jane Doe and Cassie testified that they received at the hands of Diddy, that could also apply to other charges. Those conduct work their way into other charges. However, the difference between trafficking and transportation for prostitution is literally force and coercion. The minute you start considering force and coercion into that conduct, it becomes trafficking. It's no longer transportation. Transportation means all he did was transport them to do these things. Force and coercion and transporting is trafficking, which is why I don't understand why he would consider this, right? And he will say it only applies or it only impacts the advisory guidelines range. So he officially rules that acquitted conduct, again, acquitted conduct can be considered. See U.S. versus Vaughn, Second Circuit, and other cases, even matters that cannot be considered for the guidelines can be considered under 3553A. This is nasty work. The judge essentially said, man, the jury don't matter. They're dumb. I'm king. If I sat in that courtroom and I heard you were accused of arson, bribery, RICO, trafficking, beating up women, forced coercion, and you was acquitted, the jury don't believe you did those things. If I heard it and I was convinced, well, I can still use that in my sentencing guidelines because I thought that you forced and coerced them, and that's overlapping conduct, and that can also overlap into the into the transportation charge, even though you were found not guilty of trafficking. That's crazy work. And the other thing he said, when he says Even things that you were acquitted of that can't be considered for the guideline, I can still consider it. And here's why that's important. Diddy's sentencing guidelines in court is he had 0 victims because he didn't force or coerce anybody to do anything. He had 0 victims. He had no prior convictions. And it's like a level 12 offense. So the guidelines for that is, well, like probation, 12 to 18 months, like max. But the judge is saying, no. I sat in this courtroom and I heard testimony. Even though he was acquitted, I still believe he had more than 0 victims. I think he had 10 victims. The reason why how many victims the judge think Diddy had is important is because there's enhancements. So if the sentencing guideline is, hey, it's an offense level 12 and is guideline 1 because he has no prior criminal history, 12 to 18 months, the judge can say, no, I think he has 10 victims and enhancements applied. So Section 3's enhancement is for defendants aggravating role, vulnerable victims, and obstruction of justice that applies. So if the judge believes Diddy has 10 victims, well, that increased the offense level. Now those enhancements can take this to an offense level 27, which it did. Diddy argued, hey, judge, I have no victims. And if you're wondering, bruh, like he got convicted of transporting Cassie and Jane Doe for rendezvous. What you mean he has no victims? Flacco, how's that possible? That's possible because, again, the precedent for the Mann Act is these were consensual adults. Everything was consensual. They was down for it, and all he did was use his money to transport them. He didn't force them to do so. And that's why you're about to see why the setup is crazy and why Diddy got done wrong. The judge ruled, no, Diddy, you actually have 10 victims. Cassie, Jane Doe, and 8 men that were hired as prostitutes. Now, this is crazy. This is insane. That's insane. That's crazy. Those 8 men were never listed as victims during the trial. So why are you now saying they were victims? Diddy was never convicted of trafficking or transporting those 10 men or those 8 men. Diddy was convicted of transporting Jane Doe and Cassie. The charge literally said Jane Doe and Cassie next to it, not those 8 other men. They were never listed as victims. But the judge is saying, whatever I hear in this courtroom, they are victims. If I think they're victims, if they came and testified and they had nothing to do with this case, but I think he victimized them, well, I can use that in my sentencing guideline. And that's what the judge did. He went straight radical on Diddy. Diddy obviously objected to Cassie, Jane Doe, and the 8 men being considered victims. So the judge writes, Mr. Combs objects to categorizing Ms. Ventura and Jane as victims. That is overruled. He overruled that. Mr. Combs objects to the escorts being characterized as victims. That is also overruled. They were transported for the purpose of engaging in commercial. Again, not Jane Doe and Cassie. Jane Doe and Cassie was not transported to engage in commercial sex. The escorts were. The 8. Those 8 were not listed as victims during the trial. Diddy was not convicted of transporting those escorts at all. But the judge is still saying, because I heard it in court, I can still consider that in my sentencing guideline. Now, for Jane Doe and Cassie, because they weren't transported for commercial sex, the judge will say that based on the testimony, he believes that Diddy coerced and forced them to do it, hence they are victim. As to coercion, when something is voluntarily, it is uncompelled. That is from Black Law's dictionary. It's a broad concept. The threats to release videos into Jane's home, that's coercion. But he was found not guilty of doing that. He was found not guilty of coercing either of these people. So even if you want to consider Cassie a victim, all right, cool, bro. Like, you send a video, you can't get out your head, cool. But Jane's a victim? Even the most radical people who's been covering this case, who's anti-Diddy, don't consider Jane a victim. But the judge is saying that because Diddy told Jane he's not going to pay her rent anymore because she ain't on no freak stuff no more, that's coercion. Diddy and Jane was in like a relationship or a situationship. She thought Diddy was her boyfriend. Diddy was paying her rent because she was being overly freaked out for him. And she was being what he would consider a good girl. The minute she stopped trying to be overly freaked out and start causing issues, he said, bro, I'm not gonna pay her. Bro, it's 10K a month. Like, why am I giving you 10K a month when you giving me headaches and issues now? Feel me? And you're not trying to be on time no more. That's coercion, bro. That's a legal precedent that F's over all men. All men get effed over by that, bro. Because imagine this, okay? You with your girl, okay? Like, your love language is physical touch, okay? The cooking and cleaning is cool, but your love language is physical touch. You paying your girl's rent because but like you a player. You don't even live there. You just paying it because you over there sometimes. She stops having sex with you for a year. You done said, huh? What? Man, listen, bruh. If you gonna neglect me like that, bruh, I'm done with this situation, bruh. And I'm not gonna pay like your rent and bills no more, bruh. If you not gonna do your girlfriend duties, I'm done with this. She can now take you to court and get you charged with coercion, with sexual abuse through coercion, because she has sex with you because you told her if she don't have sex with you and she keeps neglecting you, you're gonna stop paying her bills and move on to another girl. This is crazy. And that sketchy logic is what he used to raise the offense level to 27 to ensure that Diddy spends the next 4 years in prison. Now, the guidelines for level 27 is apparently 70 to 87 months. But I guess he had mercy on Diddy and gave him 50 instead. While giving Diddy the 50 months, the judge even says he's only giving Diddy the 50 months to deter other people from doing this. Is that common practice? Maybe it is. I've never been sentenced, so I don't know. I've never served a day in prison. I wouldn't know. I just think it's wrong. Now, people are reacting to Diddy being sentenced, so let's just take a look at what some people have to say about this, man. So Tariq Nasheed wrote, there are technically no victims in this Diddy case. Cassie is not the victim here because there was no domestic violence charges in this conviction. White supremacy is in desperate need for a win, so they have to go all out with the systematic non-justice with this case. Tariq Nasheed would also blame the immigrants on top of white supremacy, claiming the judge was, I'm not sure if this word here is allowed on YouTube, but yeah, that means immigrant. So David Turner says, why did this YouTuber reporting on Diddy case refer to his supporters as the Diddyots? She said the courthouse got shut down because the Diddyots were outside acting up again. Apparently not everybody thinks Diddy is innocent or got off light. One person says, wow, how the justice system works. People get 5+ years for the smallest charges, but Diddy gets 4 after everything he did. Make it make sense. I do think some believe that Diddy got convicted of everything, but no. Diddy got convicted of the Mann Act, transportation. So, like, imagine talking to a girl, she says, hey, I want this much to come over. You said, okay, cool. And then you buy her an Uber to come over. Well, you transport it. That's the Mann Act. Do you believe you should give 4 years for that? Probably not, right? Somebody says, Diddy, well, hey, a lot of people think that Diddy should have gotten more. Somebody says Diddy only gets 50 months in prison. What a joke. Somebody said, well, damn. Well, let's. Kyra says, how the F do you sit down and watch this video and only give Diddy 4 years? Diddy was not convicted of this. That's like domestic violence. Again, I'm not excusing that. I think that's wrong. I condemn and disavow any man who put his hands on any woman. Right? Diddy is not a good person. He's not a good person at all. He's a pretty terrible human being. But the rights of terrible human beings matters too. And if we're looking at just what he was convicted of, this is a gross injustice. Somebody says this type of performance, Diddy lawyer, had to put in. Somebody says Diddy only locked up for 4 years when he has terrorized women for literal centuries as an abuser and a rapist. He was not convicted of raping. Man, listen, man, people, apparently I stand alone. Nobody seems to believe or go with what I'm saying, okay? But y'all let me know in the comment section, what do you guys believe, man? Do y'all think 4 years is enough for Diddy? Do y'all think 4 years is too much? Let me know in the comment section. And if you're still watching, click on this video right here to find out why Wack 100 is accusing Brick Baby of telling. Click on this video right here to find out what I'm talking about. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.